Excellent. I want to thank everyone for being here. We just had a very helpful, very straightforward discussion with leaders of the Tenants Association here. I want to thank all of them for their leadership. I want to thank them for the important ideas that they offered and for the way they advocate so strongly for the residents of this community. I want to thank, in particular, the president of the Boulevard Houses Tenants Association, Inez Rodriguez. Thank you for your leadership. We'll be hearing from Inez in a few minutes. A lot of great effort is being made to make the changes that we need, and you're going to hear from some of the key players. I just want to acknowledge them up front. I want to thank the chair of the Housing Authority, Shola Olatoye, and the general manager, Cecil House, who I've been working with constantly in these last days as we make the changes we have to make rapidly. I want to thank Marco Carrion, the head of our Community Affairs Unit for the Mayor's Office. He and his team have been working very closely with tenant leaders and with residents here to try and ease their burden, to try and help them as we start to make some of the changes needed. I want to thank them for their extraordinary efforts. I want to thank Dean Foulahan, our budget director, who participated in the meeting earlier with the tenant leaders. Thank him for being a part of that meeting to hear firsthand the things that we need to do, and he will clearly be in the front line of a lot of the solutions ahead. You're going to hear from Pastor David Brawley in a bit. I want to thank him for the incredible leadership he has provided the community over this last week plus as people have faced so many challenges. I want to thank A.T. Mitchell, the chair of the Community Board and the leader of Man Up. I want to thank Juan Rodriguez, the president of the 75th Precinct Community Council. A lot of leaders in this community have gotten together and worked in concert, no matter how tough the situation. There's a lot of great displays of leadership and real partnership here I want to commend and thank. From the NYPD, I'm going to say what I have here and see if I got it right. Inspector Tom Delahanty, the commanding officer of the Housing Bureau's Special Projects Unit, which does the camera work. And is Deputy Inspector Iglesias here?
Yeah, he's here.
He's here? Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Inspector Miguel Iglesias, who's gotten a lot of praise in the meeting.
Yes.
Commanding Officer of PSA 2. We thank you. Want to thank the elected officials who are here. You're going to hear from them in a moment. Want to thank Comptroller Scott Stringer, who's played a crucial role in the progress we've made in the last few days. Want to thank Borough President Eric Adams for his extraordinary support. I know he's been very present in the community and helping in a number of ways. I want to thank Council Member Inez Barron, who's played an incredibly helpful role helping this community in many, many ways, and particularly been a champion on the question of the cameras. Want to thank former council member Charles Barron, who put the money in place for the cameras.
Yes.
That should have happened a long time ago.
Yes.
I said he did the right thing by putting the money in. Inez continued that. What they deserved was a response from the executive branch worthy of the commitment they made to the community. That response is coming right now, as we saw with our own eyes a few minutes ago. And finally, and most importantly, a woman who has gone through more than I can imagine. In my conversations with her, has shown such strength, and she's someone we all embrace and support. Erica McClinton, the mother of PJ Avito.
Yes.
And Erica knows not only are our hearts with her, but we are committed to her and her family for the long haul. I know everyone shares that feeling.
Thank you.
The events of these last 10 days, that tragedy a week ago Sunday night, for me, and I know for so many people standing with me, we first have to think about it as human beings, as for many of us as parents. This incredibly painful tragedy, this loss of a young man who, to all of us, any one of us, it could have been our child. And when I went to the wake, I was so struck by this handsome young man who should be with us right now, and that we all have an obligation to do everything we can to protect our children. It's every parent's instinct. It's anyone who has any child in their life, a family member, in any way. It's our instinct to protect. As a society, we have to do better. As a city, we have to do better. As a city government, we have to do better. And what brings us here is the resolve that we are going to do better. Thank God that Michaela Capers is alive, is out of the hospital today. And she misses her dear friend, PJ. Sure. But her life is a testimony to perseverance and strength. And we're going to be there for her and her family as well. And we can't forget that 2 days earlier, we lost another young woman. Mm-hmm. We don't have all the facts yet of the connection between the cases. We think there's a very strong likelihood of a connection, but we don't have all the facts yet. But we lost Tanaya Copeland, an 18-year-old young woman, a nursing student, would have had an extraordinary future of serving others ahead. Her funerals today, and we mourn her loss as well. So we understand the difference between the grief we feel, the human grief, the sense we all have, the sense of deep solidarity and connection to the family. We all want to embrace PJ's family. We all want to be there for them, and then we all have to use this moment to call us to something larger. And we are committed to taking decisive action to improve safety, not only here at Boulevard Houses, but across the New York City Housing Authority. There'll be a series of steps we take in the coming weeks and months that will make clear our resolve. But we know the current state of affairs is unacceptable. Work begins today with the installation of 17 surveillance cameras here at Boulevard Houses. That work begins today. I've said to the tenant leaders who are holding my feet to the fire rightly, and all of us, said we're going to tell them exactly when things begin. We're going to tell them exactly when they're done. We're also going to pay attention to maintenance of these cameras, because the cameras are only as good as their working order. They have every right to demand that of us. But the work has begun today. A number of us had a chance to see some of the workmen starting the process of installing the wiring, and so we've said very clearly this starts now, and it has to be fully up and running as quickly as possible. I'll give you other updates in the course of these remarks. We know that the history on the question of security cameras was not acceptable. We know that council members did, and I speak as a former council member, did exactly what they saw fit and did the right thing, trying to delineate the areas they thought needed cameras the most. They went and made a priority. They secured the funding. That should have been the final word. Should not have required anything more than that. They met with bureaucratic delays and rejection at every turn. That was unacceptable in the previous administration. That's unacceptable in my administration. I think everyone involved in my team understands that, and they have moved with great speed to resolve the situation. And so, as we know in New York City, it's not how many times you're knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. I want to thank the chair and the general manager of the Housing Authority for now leaning in with all they have and telling their teams that failure is not an option, and you can see it already in the movement that is occurring. In the course of just the last week, $27 million worth of cameras, all that was allocated previously by the New York City Council, $27 million covering 49 developments in this city. All of those contracts were formally registered so that work can begin. That which did not happen previously, which stood in the way of progress, was resolved in the course of a week, literally, because everyone had a clear order. It had to happen. A process that in the past was allowed to take months and months, that in the case of many developments wasn't even initiated, took 1 week when the message was clear that failure was not an option. So one other frame you should have, in this case, $27 million, 49 locations registered in a week. That process in the past for just 50 cameras took, in some cases, as much as a year. So we now are going to make sure that we set a standard for action. Not just here at Boulevard Houses.
Yes.
This is a system-wide change that begins with implementing the money that was allocated by various council members. So you will not only see the beginnings of action here today at Boulevard, you will see it at Fort Independence Houses in the Bronx, at Pelham Parkway Houses in the Bronx, at Bailey Houses in the Bronx, Latimer Gardens, Queens, and Baisley Park, Queens as well. This is going to be a constant effort over the coming months until every single one of these cameras is installed during calendar year 2014. Now, I said to you that this work was done in a week, and it could not have happened had we not had a city comptroller who was adamantly committed to changing the way business is done in this city government. The comptroller is a watchdog on city government. The comptroller is the individual who makes sure that taxpayers' money is being used well. The comptroller is the person who makes sure the government is spending money properly. And when Scott Stringer understood that these contracts had been so poorly handled previously by all elements of government, he responded with tremendous urgency. He said to his team that they had to find a way to move these contracts in a matter of days. I want to give him tremendous credit because he broke through so many log jams and so much red tape, and it made a huge difference here. And equally want to say that our city budget director, Dean Foulahan, and I can say this having called him at all hours of the day and night, was staying on top of everyone at OMB to make sure that everything was done in record time. So it comes down to leaders who believe that we have to serve people, and that bureaucracy is not an acceptable reason to delay the services that people need who are on the front line, people who are good, hardworking people facing crime, needing support and security. We owe it to them to do things differently and not just repeat the mistakes of the past. Cameras are one part of the solution. I want to emphasize this. Cameras are important. Cameras are incredibly helpful. They're just one part of the solution. And as we lay out our plans in the coming weeks and months, you're going to see a lot more than cameras, because people need cameras and they need other things too. Security comes from a combination of police presence and the right relationship between the police and community residents and tenant association leadership. It comes from the use of technology, not just cameras as we know them, but new and better technology we'll be bringing into play. It comes from a lot of elements that even go beyond traditional public safety. We talked a lot about the after-school programs and the recreation programs for our young people to help get them away from some of the negative influences that surround them. We talked about community patrols, which is when community members stand up and protect their own neighborhood. We need to do that on a much greater level. There are so many pieces to the solution. We've got to remember that we have had a tragedy, and that in and of itself hurts us deeply. But what's even worse is when you've had a tragedy and nothing changes. One of the founders of the Republic, Benjamin Franklin, said, "Those things that hurt instruct." We've all been taught a very, very painful lesson. But we have to take that moment and now act and rise above. We owe it to these children. We owe it to the families. We need people to be able to see that something is changing, that it's physical, that it's real, that they can count on it. The responsibility in the first instance for the progress that we will make in the Housing Authority, in safety and in so many other areas, falls to our chair. And I have absolute confidence that she's going to lead us to a very new and better approach. I want to welcome the chair and CEO of NYCHA, Shola
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. First, I must start by saying we are all saddened, of course, that one of our youngest residents has lost his life, steps from his home, and his young friend is still struggling to recover. Erica, Ms. McClinton, I too am the young mother I'm the mother of two young children, a 6-year-old as well, and I cannot imagine what you and your family and the Capers family are experiencing, and my heart is broken for you, as is the rest of the city. Thank you so much for your strength and your compassion that you have extended to me personally and to the members of my team, so thank you. It also weighs heavy on our hearts today that there also isn't an easy answer to what led to PJ's death and Michaela's injuries at the hands of a disturbed assailant who would commit a crime that none of us can comprehend. And while the real answers may elude us, we all deserve to feel safer in our homes. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their homes. And I'm pleased to be here today with so many of my residents, the Mayor de Blasio, Comptroller Stringer, Borough President Adams, Council Member and State Senator Committee, Barron, and true community advocates for, again, your promotion, and many community leaders who are all assembled here today, focused on the safety of not just NYCHA, but New York City. NYCHA's start on the camera installation at Boulevard this week, in fact, kicks off an extensive installation process at some 48 other developments around the city, where we've received City Council funding to proceed. Now, with an accelerated approval process, as the Mayor alluded to, streamlined by the Mayor and our colleagues at OMB and our partners at the City Comptroller's Office and many other agencies who have assisted us in the last week, this work can proceed swiftly. There are security cameras in more than 150 developments, totaling some close to 11,000 cameras throughout the NYCHA portfolio. Our new leadership at NYCHA, where I've been chair since March, has made resident engagement a priority with safety and security. We're revisiting our capital improvement programs and working to narrow the time from dollars in hand to cameras on mounts. And let me be clear, as we stand together here today as government leaders, officials, residents, and community members, no one is sitting still. No one is sitting still. My team is deeply involved, deeply committed to delivering these security enhancements. But I'll say the job of keeping New Yorkers safe is not just NYCHA's responsibility, it's the city's responsibility. And that's why I'm so pleased to be here with all of you here today to talk more about that. While we're here to highlight the work that's taking place today at Boulevard, we know there's much more work to do. Someone said this is deeper than security cameras. The Mayor said that, serving the needs of our community while working collaboratively with all members and facets of government is our task and my commitment in my administration in support of Mayor de Blasio. So thank you for being here. I want to thank our resident leadership for their advocacy, for their partnership, and let's get to work. Thank you.
Again, it is very important in this work we do to recognize who stood up and who got the job done. And when we said it is time to get these cameras in now, the crucial link was the City Comptroller's Office. And I have never seen something move faster, and nor was there a better time for us to see this kind of progress than what we've seen just in these last days from the Comptroller's Office. I want to thank Comptroller Stringer's entire staff for their extraordinary efforts. I want to thank him for making what's happening here today at Boulevard possible. Welcome, Comptroller Stringer.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, good morning, and I want to just start out by recognizing the family and this incredible tragedy. Like Shola, I have two young children, a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, And every time I think about what happened, I just can't believe this loss and the impact it has on our entire city. So my condolences. And to the tenants who I had the honor of meeting with this morning, I want to thank the mayor for the invitation. You really are the watchdogs of your community, and you love your neighborhood, and you're going to do everything you can to fight for the community. And that is why it is so important for government to meet you halfway.
That's right.
And that's why we're here today. You know, last Friday I went to the wake of little PJ Vito, and I have to tell you, it was something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. Such a young, beautiful boy, and the way I saw him was just a moment when no parent should ever see a child. But this is not a new situation. Back in 2012, when I was borough president, a police officer had been shot at Seward Park Houses, and there were no cameras around back then. And the community was rightfully outraged, and people stood up, and folks were shocked that the cameras where money had been allocated never appeared. Back then, NYCHA vowed to install cameras at some 80 developments. The mayor talks about something good, positive coming out of a tragedy. Well, that was certainly true back then in 2012. By the end of 2013, those cameras were supposed to be in place, and yet nothing moved. This time, NYCHA's got to get it right. This can't be allowed to happen again. The bureaucracy must move because lives are at stake. And for far too long, residents of the Boulevard Houses and dozens of public housing facilities around the city have not been protected by security cameras. Now, the mayor understands this first and foremost, and he understands that the time to move is now. And when he stood up and said, no, we're not waiting another month, we're not waiting another 6 months, we're not waiting another year, he said to NYCHA and to his folks, we're getting this done now. I have to tell you, I was surprised because I know a little bit about this bureaucracy.
That's right.
So when he stood up, I said to our folks in the Comptroller's office, look, we're going to meet the community halfway. If the mayor's doing it, we're going to do our part too. Right. And I also want to just shout out the Comptroller's office, our Deputy Comptroller for Contracts, Lisa Flores. They worked day and night. As NYCHA got the contracts prepared, our office was registering them and doing our due diligence. And I'm proud to tell you this morning that in a collaboration with the mayor's office, OMB, NYCHA, and the Comptroller's office, every contract that will allocate this money is signed, sealed, and delivered in record time. But let me also mention and piggyback on what our mayor said. Cameras are vital and important, but it's the first step in keeping communities safe. For too long, we've treated NYCHA as a stepchild to the rest of the city. NYCHA developments and the population of NYCHA is the size of the city of Boston, but we certainly don't treat NYCHA that way. 5% of the population of our city, but yet 20% of the crime occurs here. So there's clearly more work to be done. And I am here to tell you that our office is going to work hand in hand with the mayor and the police because we need a partnership to get this done. You should be as safe at Boulevard Houses in Brooklyn as you are at the Boulevard residence on the Upper West Side.
That's right. That's it.
That's the bottom line here.
That's right.
And that's what we have to get to. So, Mayor de Blasio, I really want to thank you for your ability to crack the bureaucracy, and I'm going to try to meet you every step of the way because this is going to be a long struggle, but it's a struggle we have to get to in the name of all the children who have died in elevators, who've died on rooftops, who've died on our sidewalks. This is going to change. Thank you very much.
I want to welcome someone who has been out supporting this community every step of the way. And when our borough president, I'll speak now as a Brooklynite, when our borough president leans into a problem, he does it with an extraordinary perspective as someone who has protected the people of this city throughout his career, the front line as a police officer, later as a police captain, now as an elected official. He speaks with an understanding of public safety that very, very few people who get elected to office have. And I think that's why he's such a voice of integrity about the changes that we have to make, and he's doing a lot about it. Borough President Eric Adams.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to thank the mayor and just add my voice to the excitement of having a commissioner of housing who gets it, and having a person in charge of our budget over at OMB. Dean brings that experience from the state and understands how to navigate the complexity of getting things done. And so we have an obligation and responsibility to assist our police department and on-the-ground organizations like Man Up, A.T. Mitchell, that for over 300 days there was not a shooting in this community because of what A.T. Mitchell has done. So the loss of a family member, the goal is to turn pain into purpose. We cannot bring back the life. And over a large number of cameras, over several millions of dollars, has a price tag attached to it, but the saving a life is priceless. And so we have to roll up our sleeves, and it's a cumulative effect that must be done. Security cameras, better lighting, given the reinforcement under Commissioner Bratton and the Housing Police Department and the PSA, the local PSAs, to ensure that they have the manpower and resources to do it. We're in the right place. And when you see a government respond as quickly, as rapidly, and with the level of integrity in the process to make sure that we can identify the problem, solve the problem, that's what we need true leadership about. So we have a serious physical giant, and what was in the previous administrations of mental midgets, we're in the right place right now to do the right thing. Thank you.
Before I call up the council member, I just want to say, as these days unfolded, I reached out to different community members and community leaders, and what I heard consistently, it started with Ms. Rodriguez, was their appreciation for the work of the NYPD, particularly during this tragedy, and everyone at PSA 2 in particular. I want to just have a moment where we all give them the round of applause that they deserve. So I want you to know that when an individual gets elected to represent their community, in my book, they need to be focused and persistent and have a strategy and think deeply about what a community needs. All of that describes Inez Barron. In the conversations we've had in the last days, I don't think she possibly could have said the word cameras more often in each sentence. And that is an indication of her focus and her resolve that we get it right. And I want to thank her for standing up and for demanding the accountability that this community has every right to deserve, and for her leadership. Council Member Inez Barron.
Good afternoon. I want to say to my sister, Erica McClinton, we love you. We continue to pray for you and your family. We know that this is a very difficult time, and we want you to know that we continue to stand with you. And whatever it is that you need, let us know. And I have already put into the City Council a request that the corner of Skank and Stanley be renamed in honor of your son. Yes. So I want you to know that we have already done that. Yes. So we're going to continue to move in that regard. We want to thank the mayor and all of the city officials who are here, the electeds, the community leaders, and the residents here for coming together on this grand day. We went across the street and we saw the work in progress. So we know that it has begun, and we expect that it will continue on a timely basis to get it completed as efficiently and effectively as we possibly can have it done. I have also reached out and asked the mayor to consider adding funds to money that was already put into the budget so that we can build a community center facing the same Skank project, Skank Avenue housing. Reverend Brawley is here, and on that same exact block, there's already Redwood senior housing going up, and we have a plan for additional housing on the other side of that block, and we want to include a community center. And if we can all agree on a name, that also could be named on behalf of Prince Joshua going forward. This is important work. And it's new work in as much as we have a new administration which is responding to our needs in a very efficient and timely manner. The money had been put in at pink houses in 2009 for cameras and took until 2013 for that work to happen. That's unconscionable. And I just want to make sure that as these new cameras are going in, the money that Councilmember Charles Barron put in for Cypress houses, $500,000, is in that money, Mr. Borough President, Mr. Comptroller. I hope that that's on that list so that that would also be completed. And finally, as we, thank you. And finally, as we talk about the resources that we have coming together, I've also asked the mayor and his staff to help assist in getting the state to give us additional money. We remember the terrible crime that was perpetrated upon the 9-year-old Hasidic boy in Borough Park. As a response to that, the state issued a $1 million grant so that they could have cameras installed on the lampposts in their community. We're asking for that same consideration here so that we will have additional cameras that will be installed. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that this day has come and look forward to working with the mayor, working with the chairperson, and all of the city elected officials, as well as the residents who are really the bloodline for what it is that's going on in our community to make our communities even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Going from one Inez to the next, I want to thank Inez Rodriguez for being a forceful leader who really takes her role very, very seriously, getting people the help they need, standing up for the community. I want to say on behalf of everyone in the city government, we appreciate your leadership. All of my colleagues feel the same way about. We felt we can get a lot done for the community with you, and we honor your leadership. TA President Inez Rodriguez.
There
you go.
I just want to say thank you to everybody, all the leaders. But I just want to say something. It's been a long road. We've been fighting a battle with these cameras, with Charles Barron by our side and Inez Barron, and my partner, Clara Woods, my vice president. It's been a fighting battle, but thank God there's a God. There's a God, because now we can get this done. And it's sad that it had to come to this. It's sad that we had to lose a little angel. But God gave us the last angel to tell the story. But I just want to say to the family, we love you and we'll always be here. This is something you don't forget. It'll always be in our heart. And I'm glad they're open. They will name a street after the prince. And I'm glad Makeda's doing fine. But I just want to say to everybody, to NYCHA and everybody, we have to do better than this. We shouldn't have to be suffering to get to this point. The rest of the developments also, they need to get cameras just like us. I know you promised. But we will be getting programs, and now we have the round table that we'll be doing and getting concerns, and things are going to be done out here, better programs for our children. But I just want to thank PSA 2 Miguel Iglesias, because he's been out here. He's been out here way before. People were asking me that something happened. He's been out here patrolling the area. But that weekend was a tragic weekend. There was a lot of murders, shooting, and everything. So they were just going all over the place. So they've been here. So I especially want to thank them. But I want to say to everybody that thank you for coming out, and the mayor, everybody for coming out so fast and responding to us and giving us the respect. But especially Charles Barron and Inez for giving that money, because it's their money that they allocated in 2009, and now it's when it's showing. And I hope to get more money to do the rest of the development. Rest of the development, we need new doors, front doors. The rest of the development needs to be done. So we need more money. I know the borough president said, the controller, they're going to help us. Everybody's going to, but we need to get that money. It's not fair to just have 9 developments done. What about the rest? We have other children up in here, and we have people that we're concerned. So all of us have to live in peace and harmony, but we should get the same thing. So I just want to say thank you, God bless, and to all the officers that have been helping, like Detective Brand that been out here, Detective Neal that's been by our side. I'm also in Grandmothers Over Violence with the Commissioner and Chief Jabby. We've been fighting, my partner and me, been with the Grandmothers Over Violence. So I started a petition also with gun violence. So I just want to tell you, we've been doing a lot. We meet with the commission, we meet with the Chief Jabby and the grandmothers, my other sisters, once a month. So I just want to say thank you, and I want to say the family, we love you, and we're here, and you will get the support that you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. In a tragedy, in a moment where everyone is challenged and searching for comfort and solace and a vision of where to move forward, we turn to our spiritual leaders. In these last days, Pastor David Brawley has really helped to bring everyone together, both in common cause for change, but also to help heal, to support the families. He's done it all, and I want to commend him for the leadership that he has shown. I know it's deeply appreciated in this community. Pastor David Brawley.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Good afternoon. To my sister Erica, I want you to know how much we love you, how much this community supports you. We will get through this, but we will never get over this.
Right.
I want to commend the mayor.
Yes.
I want to commend him for expediting the process and moving to get cameras in place.
Right.
You know, today really feels a whole lot like a groundbreaking.
Yes.
And I've participated in many groundbreaking ceremonies. And there's always anticipation, energy, and excitement. But the real celebration comes when you get to the ribbon cutting.
There you go.
And there is not going to be a ribbon cutting until all 334 developments have security surveillance cameras in place. I want to simply charge and commend our elected officials to continue this process. And I want to invite everyone back to East New York for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Yes.
Just want to say a few words in Spanish, then we'll take questions on topic and then questions off topic. Hoy comenzamos la instalación de cámaras de seguridad en Boulevard Houses en Brooklyn. En los próximos meses estaremos instalando más cámaras en otros edificios de NYCHA. Este es el primer paso en nuestro esfuerzo por aumentar la seguridad en la vivienda pública. Muchas gracias. Inez, thank you, Inez. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your support. With that, questions on topic. Yes.
So, Mayor, you mentioned this work being more than just cameras,
Yes.
but right now there are 57 community centers that are at risk of closing in the coming fiscal year. So isn't that one of the things you said needs to be part of this process?
Again, that topic is being discussed as we speak with the City Council as we come to the conclusion of the budget process, so that's certainly on the table for discussion. I want to emphasize there are so many pieces to this, and we've had a very good and honest conversation with the tenant leaders. Some pieces will move soon, some pieces will move later. There's many fronts we're fighting this war on, and a lot of it is about reaching our youth, whether it is community centers, community programming, community patrols, after school. There's a lot of pieces. But we'll be having conversations with the City Council on that front and have more to say shortly.
Mayor, I'm just trying to clarify why this has taken so long if, as the council member mentioned, this was approved back in 2009. And you mentioned that contracts had to be formally registered. That could take a year. You all did it in basically a week's time.
Yes.
So my question is then, who dropped the ball? I mean,
Look, it's quite clear. I don't want to mince words. The previous administration dropped the ball in a very big way, And then I also said openly, and I'll say it again, my administration should have done better in our first months as well. And the minute it became clear to me that these were not moving, we gave the sharpest possible orders, which have led to this progress. And thank God we had effective leaders in Shola and Cecil at NYCHA and Dean at OMB who were able to turn on a dime and get it done, and we had a Comptroller who was ready to work with us every step of the way. But it should have happened in the year the money was allocated. It's not mysterious.
That's right.
City Council, the democratically elected body, allocated money. It should have moved that same year.
You talk about other security issues, and I want to talk about the doors, for instance. I mean, there are many residents that say you can pull them open, you can keep them down. It's very easy to get in any building in a NYCHA development. So how much is a priority are the doors, and what exactly, can every development get this layered access, which has supposedly been a priority for the Housing Authority?
Okay, again, I'm going to, as we talk about this today, and next week, and the week after, and the week after, I'm going to be very straightforward to people about the size of the challenge we face and the many tools we're going to have to use. And this is going to be a fight that continues until it's won. The fact is, you're exactly right. Cameras are a piece of the solution. Doors, improving the security of our doors is a piece of the solution. Police presence is a piece of the solution. Neighborhood patrols are a piece of the solution. We have a lot of pieces we have to move on. Now, Shola is going to come up and talk to you about how the decisions were made on the $27 million allocated by the City Council, 49 developments. The process was for NYCHA to consult with tenant associations on their sense of where to prioritize the money in terms of which buildings, and their sense of the mix of doors and other security measures, cameras, the whole choice, the whole mix of options. So let me have Shola explain to you a little more what that encompasses.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the important lessons that our staff learned in thinking about safety and security at our developments is that it's critical to work with residents in the design of that process. And so one of the first things that our staff works on is actually meeting with resident leaders and the broader resident body and our PSA colleagues or NYPD colleagues to identify where the cameras should go. The other piece of this, and again, bigger than just cameras, is the other facets of a security enhancement approach that includes doors, it includes layered access, and TA associations can actually vote on the components of the security package, essentially, that they would like to see in their development. And so, you know, Ms. Rodriguez can attest to that. That is a process that she and her members were engaged in. Other developments may choose something in addition to cameras or besides cameras. So this really is a process that we work with our members, our residents, and NYPD to ensure that it is reflective of the community needs as well as consistent with NYPD's concerns and focus.
Former Council Member Barron just reminded me to make sure we're all right about the facts. So again, this was, I want to emphasize, under the previous administration, there was a series of these decisions by that administration to ignore the allocations by the City Council in terms of cameras and security, or to do them very slowly. That being said, the facts are, I'm going to repeat, and Charles will correct me if I'm wrong. The 2009 allocation was for the pink houses.
Yes.
They didn't do it until 2013.
And they didn't do it until 2013, so there's your 4-year lag. The allocation for Boulevard was July of last year. But the point is the typical trend, we saw this across many developments, we saw this in the experience many council members had, is that the cameras just didn't move. On topic, yes.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, in last month's administration, suggested perhaps installing biometric fingerprint access at doors in NYCHA buildings, which would allow people, only residents, to come in and out of the buildings. Is that something that's on the table for security?
We haven't talked about that particular option. Of course, we'll look at any and all options. But I think the things that we are talking about are not complicated. I'm not an expert on biometric security, but I can tell you what we know a little bit about. We know about police presence. We know about close working relationship between police and tenants. We know about community patrols. We know about cameras. We know about doors that lock. We know about after-school programs and youth programs. So that's where our focus is. But if there's any other new technology that would help, we're certainly going to review it.
on the same day that the NYPD was able to make a major break in this case, NYPD also made a major bust for alleged gang activity in Harlem. Did you approve, and do you approve of that effort? And as a follow-up, how do you respond to residents in that community who feel like that might have been excessive and counter to your administration's promise for approval?
No, I think I've talked to a lot of people from the community. We're talking about Grant Houses and Manhattanville Houses. The people I've talked to were very pleased that a persistent gang problem was addressed. By the way, there are some people who were arrested who sadly are hardened criminals. There are others who are very young, and we're going to do everything we can to help turn them to the right path. And I think we've talked about this a lot in the last year. I'm a thorough believer in gang intervention, in the efforts to work with community members, family, clergy, to turn around some of our younger individuals who have had some trouble and help them veer away from that path. It has worked all around the country. We're using it more and more here. But the bottom line is Commissioner Bratton and I talked frequently. I understood that this was coming, and I absolutely approved and supported it because for those two developments, they are a lot safer today because of this action, and you're going to see a lot more of these kind of actions wherever we are in a position to put together the evidence to do that kind of full sweep.
You mentioned the increasing of police presence in NYCHA developments. I'm wondering how you can do that in a sustained way over a long period of time if there's also a resistance to hiring 1,000 more officers as a council.
I don't think you should see that formula so simply. I think we've got right now about 34,500 police officers who are doing, I think, an extraordinary job of keeping crime low in this city. We always have challenges, and we do not rest. Commissioner Bratton and I, again, talk constantly, and we're proud of some of the things that are working very well. And we're proud that the murder rate is lower. We're proud that some crimes are down. We know some others are up, and we're going to address that each and every place we find it, which is why you saw that action in Manhattanville Houses and Grant Houses. That was a very key offensive to addressing some of the challenges that we have. But we have 34,500 officers. Commissioner Bratton has continued to deploy them in the most effective manner. He continues to assess where the needs are greatest and how to use the officers we have most effectively, which is why you've seen over the last weeks, well before this tragedy, as Ms. Rodriguez attested to me, movements have been made with police in the PSA and other PSAs towards some of the developments that are having particular challenges. So troop movements have already begun. You're going to see a lot more next month when our recruits graduate. A lot of them are going to be coming into public housing, working with the community to provide additional security. So you're going to see a lot of activity in terms of the use of the existing officers we have. There's a separate discussion about the future and where we need to go. That's a valid discussion. But my focus right now is on using the police officers we have to greatest effect, and I know we can continue to perfect that. Rich.
Mr. Mayor, is there a target number of cameras for this complex and a target date by which you think they ought to be all in operation?
Shola, you have that? Your fingertip, or Cecil, come on up. You don't need this. Wait a minute. What am I doing?
I don't need that.
You don't need that.
Okay.
Use that? Okay.
There are 17 cameras currently planned for this location. Our current outside timeline is that they will be in place by October. 18, sorry. And they will be in place by October. We are working to pull that time frame back. We think we can tighten it up even a little bit more and get it done quite a bit sooner.
But again, the physical work has begun today. Yes.
Beyond physical protection measures, what sort of counseling or emotional support is provided for tenants in this complex, particularly younger children who must be shaken up by what happened?
So let me just start by saying again, and I'll turn to Shola, as a parent, I take that question very seriously. It also has to say with the schools that the children go to, there's a lot of pieces that we have to address. But one thing I do want to say, I've heard this from family members, from the two families that have suffered this tragedy, is they are very appreciative of folks from the police, from NYCHA, from the mayor's office, people who all said the same thing to them: how can we help, what can we do, and we want to be here for you. So I think we've tried to make a very clear message to the family that we're going to be there for them and any other residents who are experiencing this trauma and need our help in any way we can. But let me have Shola talk about some more of the details.
So with regard to sort of the counseling and support, critical mental health support, in addition to our CAMBA colleagues who are one of the social service providers who are based here at Boulevard, NYCHA family services staff have been engaged in, along with CAMBA, for a week-long series of sort of counseling sessions, grief counseling sessions that continue, and family services staff at NYCHA will provide that service to any NYCHA resident that seeks it out.
Thank you. Okay.
One more on topic.
One more on topic, sir.
Can you, it was just mentioned, and forgive me, my voice is going.
It's all right.
It was just mentioned that it will take until October to install the 18 cameras. Can someone just detail what the process is over a 4-month period to install 18 cameras?
So I'll bring up Cecil on the mechanics. I want to say these are exactly the questions I asked, so I've found a kindred soul. But I did say to everyone I need to see physical evidence that they're being installed. I have seen that today. And I also know these things have to work. They have to work regularly. They have to be positioned in a way that they're actually going to provide what we need. So I do want to say from the outset, and I think a lot of people agree with this, we want the fastest possible job that gets it done right. I want to push to see if we can move that timeline up by definition. Cecil will speak to the specifics.
Yeah, the installation process is somewhat complicated. We actually install a security operations center, which is the brains of the camera. So we're installing a system that will allow, as time moves forward, us to continue to build upon the cameras that we're installing today. So as funds are made available for layered access, newer intercoms and others, we want to make sure we have all those things in place so that the future installation will be easier. So we'll install the Security Operations Center, the central brain of the system. Then there's a network of wiring that has to go throughout all these buildings and has to be connected underground or through basements in order for the cameras that are ultimately installed to be able to feed back in to that center system, and then for us to be able to either monitor or provide feeds to various locations around the city.
All right. We're turning over to other topics.
Hi, yes. On the topic of the ruling in California on teacher tenure, I'm wondering what your response to that ruling is and what you think the implications will be for New York City. There are some groups that have already said they want to bring their own similar suits here.
Well, I'll start by saying I haven't seen the judge's ruling, but I'll work from what little I do know. I think I can speak to the broad strokes. I don't know of any legal action here, and I don't know what the basis for that action would be. I'm going to tell you what I think of what we're doing now. The tenure system done right is a valuable piece of the way we educate, because what it's going to allow us to do, and done right allows us to do for generations, is get quality teachers, get them to stay in our school system, get them to keep advancing and getting additional training, and ultimately, if they choose, become administrators. That's what we need. As I mentioned over the last year, we have a crisis right now, not only in this city, but all across the country, a crisis of retention when it comes to quality teachers. Retention has a lot to do with whether you have job security and a job future where you can better yourself. Tenure is a part of that. But what we need to go with that is a strong, effective evaluation system, which I think we are now achieving between the actions of New York State and New York City, but it has to come with some of the things that we believe are absolutely necessary: constant teacher training, those advancement opportunities, and an equally clear process for those who do not belong in the profession. Every profession has individuals who start down the road and just should not continue. And there's a very aggressive process now. If someone does not fit the profession, that can be identified early and they can be moved along to something else. But for those who do fit the profession and can continue to grow, we want them to stay. So that's why I think we can strike the right balance. I've been handed a note. Okay. Cecil, help me out.
So it's 17.
All right, why don't you explain so that we can have a little dialogue to make sure we understand each
I just
other.
want to be clear for the press on the number of cameras that we currently plan to install. We're going to have a conversation on the side on 18. I have 17 cameras that we are planning to install. They're going to impact 9 buildings. They have multiple addresses. So we'll circle back to figure out where we have a discrepancy.
The management office, they added a camera for the management office.
Okay, we'll confirm that.
All right, we're getting it right together. This is in progress as we speak. Yes.
As I'm sure you remember, Eric Cantor recently visited New York City. I just question for you, how happy are you about what happened last night? And how does that bode for the future relationship between the city and Washington and obtaining some of the funding you hope to obtain from Washington?
Eric Cantor helped to create the presence of the Tea Party in the House of Representatives. And Eric Cantor helped to paralyze our federal government, including not giving support to places like this, not helping public housing, not creating affordable housing, not investing in infrastructure, not investing in research, not investing in education, not investing in cities. So there is certainly some irony here that a man who aided and abetted the most extreme elements of the Tea Party finds himself now on the other end of the stick. But I think what it means going forward, certainly we should all feel some deep caution that some in the Republican Party will now sense this as a moment to turn even more conservative and get even more out of touch with the majority of the American people. I think it does not augur well for immigration reform, and we desperately need comprehensive immigration reform. And by the way, I think Senator McCain was right to say to his fellow Republicans, if you don't act on comprehensive immigration reform, then don't come crying later when the people of this country reject you. So I guess there is a cautionary tale in Mr. Cantor's career, but what I care about much more is that we correct this dysfunctional dynamic in Washington and reject the politics of the Tea Party and actually move toward a federal government that will invest in our cities and in the future of our country. Sally.
Can you discuss your opposition to this police pension bill in Albany? I think your administration said it's cost prohibitive. Can you go into some detail about that?
I can only give you the broad strokes. Look, let me state the obvious. I've expressed my praise earlier for the men and women of the NYPD. I feel that profoundly. And it's our job to be there for them no matter what happens. And I think the NYPD does an extraordinary job for officers who are wounded in the line of duty or for those who pass away, for their families. So I recognize and appreciate that reality, and then I have to think about where we're going as a city. I have not seen all the details of the bill, but I am concerned about the bill's impact. And I also am not certain at this point, given other developments in Albany, whether there's actually going to be any movement on major pieces of legislation.
Taxi of tomorrow, you have opposed it in the past for reasons from wheelchair accessibility to Nissan's investments in Iran.
Yes.
With yesterday's court ruling, has your opinion of the vehicles changed?
No. Okay, you're going to make me elaborate. I have the same critique I had before. I don't think the process was done right. I think it is not right to have a single vehicle approved instead of a variety of vehicles that meet certain standards. I don't like that we've lost an opportunity to create jobs here in New York City. I don't like Nissan's involvement in Iran. I don't like a lot of things about this. I think it was a broken process on many levels. And there is a potential next step in the legal process, and we're certainly examining that option.
Mr. Mayor, the city should stop participating in the field tests, those extra tests that help them develop future math and English questions and so forth. Some parents are saying it's just too much on top of the already substantial.
I don't know the nuances of that question. I'll speak again in broad strokes, and certainly we can get you a more detailed answer after I consult with Chancellor Farina. But I would say broadly, I don't believe in the over-reliance on high-stakes testing. And one of the things we've done is we're moving away from that on many, many fronts. One of the reasons, another item in the news is the single test that determines whether our young people get into specialized high schools. Specialized high schools are the jewel in the crown of this city's school system. They should be available to a wide range of young people, talented young people, able young people with bright futures. And I guarantee you those young people come in every shape and color, come from every zip code. Mm-hmm. But our specialized schools do not reflect that right now. So that's because we make a decision based on a single test. We used to grade schools based on a single test. We don't do that anymore. We're not grading schools based on tests anymore. We are looking for every opportunity to move away from high-stakes testing. The field test question, I want to be respectful to the pedagogical elements of that I may not understand, but the broad answer is we agree agree with parents who say we went too far on testing and we're looking for every opportunity to roll it back.
One more, guys.
Okay, who has not had one yet?
Your Republican critics, including your former rival, Joe Loda, have expanded on the recent report that crime has been going up due to your policing policies. What's your take on that? I think
Commissioner Bratton is the finest police leader in America. I think he is making the moves. Thank you for that, and you clap for that. I think he is making the moves now to address some of the challenges we face, and he's doing it very aggressively. I would remind Mr. Loda and everyone else that Bill Bratton is the guy who brought CompStat not just to New York City but to the world, and that is about making strategic adjustments. It's about seeing where the problem is and doing something about it, and that's what we're doing as we speak. What you saw at Manhattanville and Grand Houses is an indication of finding problems and addressing them aggressively. So you're going to see a lot of activities in the coming weeks and months. You're going to see a lot of troop movements. You're going to see a lot of things that make those adjustments. But that being said, on many, many fronts, crime is being kept low. Again, murder rate, thank God, lower now, and a lot more to be done. So I have absolute faith in Commissioner Bratton, and I have absolute faith that we are focused every hour of every day on safety, and we'll continue to improve. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.